Thank you to Marco, to you and your team for the invite. It's great to be here. And also thank you to the previous speakers. There were some pretty interesting topics that came up there. Huber, I think I met you informally at Co-Create last time, funnily enough. You know Rudy, Doc Rudy that works with me, I think. So we'll connect with you afterward again, perhaps. So I've been asked to speak a little bit about social entrepreneurship and our own organization, TSIBA, and how that works and what it's all about. So I'll take you through a couple of slides and give you some information. Just a little bit about myself. I spent about 20 years in corporates and worked for profit for a long time, and also built a few companies of my own. And I'm now involved in education with TSIBA, which is a university in South Africa. And I'll give you some more detail about what we do. The sort of things I love doing are implementing design thinking and lean startup and those kind of concepts into both our curriculum and into society. So that's sort of me in a nutshell. One of the problems we face in South Africa is the inequality, and the Gini coefficient is 0.63, which makes us one of the most unequal societies in the entire world. And a lot of that has to do with the legacy of apartheid, as well as poverty, and is also not just apartheid, but the whole result of the way society is constructed with capitalism and the impact of colonialism and so forth. And so that's quite a big challenge that we're dealing with in South Africa. And of course, we have our own internal challenges with regards to that as well. I think, though, that poverty is not just normal. It's actually created by mankind, as our former leader and statesman Nelson Mandela quoted. And so because it's created by mankind, it means mankind can also solve it. And does call for a real reorientation and a real rethink about how we live our lives and how we contribute to others' lives. And poses quite significant questions to the current free market and capitalist models of the world, which in a way are supposed to have done the opposite, but in fact have contributed to the inequalities that we are experiencing. So TSIBA is a business school, and we use leadership and entrepreneurship subjects as one of our foundation subjects, and deliver a business degree to our students. We only focus on the business degree. We have a diploma and certificate as well, but it's all business, so sort of like a mini MBA, just to give you an idea. And then we charge, because of poverty in the country, we charge what the student can afford. So we have a sliding scale system, and they only pay what they can afford, which sometimes is very little. And we then raise funds to pay for their scholarships. Of our students, almost all of them are on scholarships, and that's our model. It has been since 2004. And more recently, the government has introduced no fees at the government universities for people under a certain income line. So we've been doing that for a long time, and I think we've got a few sort of ways of doing that, which I'll discuss a little bit more in a few moments. At the moment, more than 90% of our students get placed into jobs. So that's quite a good statistics in South Africa and globally. In South Africa, about 50% of students get placed in jobs in other business schools and universities. So we've got a very high success rate in placing our students after they finish their degree. I think one of the foundations of our business degree is that we don't just teach the theory of marketing or finance, etc., but we actually teach them entrepreneurial skills and also self-development, leadership and self-development skills. And both of those are taught in a very experiential manner, in a learn by doing manner. So they're not theoretical subjects. They are engaged in actual projects where they have to create stuff. In fact, recently we had a similar kind of project with Fontes, and a number of those projects exist in the organization. And then the students also go on a personal development journey over the 3 years, where they learn all about themselves with various leadership and psychological tool sets applied into that curriculum. So the leadership and the entrepreneurship curriculums are quite different to other business degrees and profoundly change the mindsets of our students and allow them to sort of embrace a new way of thinking. We must bear in mind that most of our students, especially the ones who come from poverty, are also disadvantaged in that the schooling system is very ineffective in South Africa, especially for poverty students. Because of the decades of neglect in the infrastructure and the schooling, only private schooling is actually of a decent quality. There are a few public schools, government schools, that are of a decent quality, but we're talking about less than 10% of the schools being effective. So that's part of our mission at TSIBA. We accept students with grades that wouldn't normally get them into a university, and we understand that that is not the indicator of their true potential. So we accept them with lower grades. We have our own admission criteria, and we then take them through these leadership and entrepreneurship journeys to help them, as well as certain bridging courses for the, for things like numeracy and so forth. So that's a little bit about what we do. Then, just to clarify what we mean by social enterprise, I think it has different meanings for people. But generally, it's an enterprise that's built for impact, and it's mission-driven rather than profit-driven. And having worked on both sides of the camp, I can say that the language inside the institution is very different. So the number of corporates I've worked with, the first part of the language is, does it make money? That is the language in corporate South Africa and corporate world. Whereas in our current, in TSIBA, the first part of our question is it good for our students? So I think you can see there that the two objectives are quite different. And indeed, at the end of the year, we hope to break even. We don't look to make profits. If we make profits, they're simply reinvested back into the business, into the students. So the drive is very different. Then just in terms of what it's not a charity, it's not a for-profit business, and it's not corporate social responsibility. So you can see there in the continuum sort of more or less where it's placed. When I say corporate social responsibility, I just want to highlight that because a lot of companies in South Africa and globally have started to think about their social responsibility. And those are driven by things like the King 2 report and so forth, which ask for that. But a lot of that is driven by, in South Africa, for example, they have to spend 1% on CSI projects, on corporate social responsibility projects. And so it's not driven actually by their passion to be social, it's driven by the fact that they need to do it from a regulatory point of view. And one of the big decision factors when tenders go out is what's called a BEE scorecard, Black Economic Empowerment Scorecard, which has a whole number of indicators in it. And so a lot of the companies who claim to have social responsibility are actually trying to get their scorecard points up so they can tender. So, I'm not saying that those things are wrong. We need to have that social responsibility, but I'm just trying to discern between that and ourselves who are a social enterprise and are driven by mission as opposed to these other objectives. So that's just to sort of put a picture of that continuum. Then if you talk about outcomes, I just want to give an example here of Luvuyo. Luvuyo was with us a number of years ago, and he's now in the township started internet cafes, which is a significant challenge because there's a lot of crime and connectivity issues and so forth in the townships. And over the years, he's built up a number of branches and in South African terms, multi-million rand business. And he's a product of TSIBA and continues to be our alumni and a very close partner with us in various ways. So when you look at the cost of our institution and what it costs to, to put things together and to graduate students, etc., we're often asking ourselves, are we being cost effective? But when you look at someone like this and the impact he has in the township and in creating employment and in social impact, he himself does social impact initiatives as well, it far outweighs the costs of us having to graduate him by manyfold. So I think he's quite a good example, and recently he won the Schwab Social Entrepreneur of the Year of the Award. So he's really moved along and done well and has been quite impressive. A number of our students have also won scholarships at some leading scholarships, Nelson Mandela Foundation, Alan Gray, etc., etc. So they've moved on to great scholarships and subsequently also, entered the workplace. Another one of our chaps, Sandile, has started this bike shop in a township in Khayelitsha, which is the biggest township in Cape Town. And you can see there, it looks amazing, and he just got those containers in a couple of weeks ago, so he's still busy setting them up. And they offer, cycles, apparel, etc. Sandile, just like Luvuyo and many of our graduates, all have pay it forward initiatives embedded in their culture, as does the whole of TSIBA. The whole concept of paying it forward is integral to who we are, and they carry it forward. So he started this journey with Heroes on Bikes, where they donated a bunch of bikes to essential workers, and eventually did a deal also with Tour de France, who donated a bunch of bikes, and he's now sent those bikes to workers. And even though it's his business, he's donated them and made a difference to the lives of those workers. So that's another example of what happens when, when you empower people that were previously disadvantaged. These are the sort of things they can do, and literally changing people's lives wherever they go. So he's donated 155 bicycles so far. He's helped 14 micro businesses, 20 soup kitchens, etc. So you can see how far and how wide that that goes. Lunga Skuman, corporate world, ShopRite, which is the biggest chain of supermarkets in South Africa. He's quite senior there, and does a lot of pay it forward work, and also works with us as well, and holds quite a senior position in that group now as well. So those are just some examples of the outputs of the TSIBA degree. Another one, Karima, she's got her own bakery, makes some amazing stuff, and is still in the startup phase, but we do engage with our students afterward, and I help facilitate some growth workshops, and she's on one of those. So I hope to see her open her own bakery, a formal bakery in another year or so. And those are some of her yummy brownies. You can see there she's kitted out her bakery at home, and quite a lot of the equipment there is from some projects that we've done with her to fund those equipments, and some, of course, from her own profits and business income. So that's TSIBA, and that's our purpose. And we've been going for just over a dozen years, and we've impacted really. We've put really a lot of a couple of thousand students through our institution, and have networks with a whole bunch of people, you know, to do that. We're mostly donor driven. About 60% of our income is from donors. It used to be 100%. We've introduced a number of paid for products over the last 2 years, which has taken about 30% of our revenue, and we're continuing to scale that part of it up and build more paid for products, certifications and diplomas and that kind of thing, as well as with business. We you know, supply training material, etc., and programs to business as well. So that's TSIBA. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.